Tipp and I were on the air answering questions less than an hour ago.
I know. I get to see your face again.
I went into the front room, put on the heating pad and the ice pack. Heating pad for my back, ice pack for my right knee. When we're done tonight, I'm going to go in and watch the game. I'm going to have the ice pack on my left hip.
Well, wait, Greg. Tell everybody why you have the ice pack and the heating pad.
I started exercising. Janie and I are doing silver sneakers at LA Fitness. And on Mondays and Fridays, we're doing water aquatics, water aerobics. And on Wednesdays, we're doing a different style of aerobic that's actually on the floor. That killed me. I mean, just killed me. I have no abdominal muscles. I got a big belly, but nothing under it except fat. And so lifting my legs, I haven't had strength in my legs since my knee surgery. But bottom line is we're loving it, and eventually I'll catch up. But what I want to say is we got some special guests tonight. We have an actual scientist. Dr. John Bush is going to be joining us. Professor Fantasy. Hey, John, how are you doing?
Thanks, Greg. Tipp. Love you guys.
And Steve Gaw. Now, Steve, I first noticed I call it Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. He's sharp. He's really a sharp analyst. So we love having Steve on with us. What's the flag in the background, Steve?
It's a Ravens flag.
Oh, he's a flag. Ravens flag. Okay.
All of my answers will be tipped towards the Homer picks.
Okay.
Well, speaking of homers, here's the Saints.
Wait, yeah. What do you? Oh, he's a Saints fan.
Saints. Okay. Well, I think the Saints are getting blown out tonight, John. Sorry, but anyway, it's our mission at the Sports Affiliation to provide the best possible analysis in a fun way, where in a positive way, and we actually track our studs to sit and our put me in coach segments so that over the course of a year, you can see if we're worth listening to. I mean, if we tell you to sit somebody and he's a superstar that week, that doesn't help you. And if we do that too consistently, you shouldn't be listening to us. That's the way we feel. But in order to aid that, this year, we're actually doing a segment on AI as well.
Yes.
And JC actually built us a new AI introduction, which we will use next week. I don't want to use it this week. But we basically use the SportsMind AI and ask it 3 players. Rank them.
Wait, Greg. His name is Sir Whittington.
No. The AI is SportsMind AI.
Oh, okay.
Person speaking is Sir Whittington.
Sir Whittington. There we go.
And what we do is we're using multiple AIs. We're using one AI to get us the answer, and then we're copying part of the answer and putting it into another one to turn it into Sir Whittington's voice. So we're having fun with it.
Oh, we are.
But basically, last week we asked Deontay Johnson, J.K. Dobbins, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. And basically, the players I choose are all within 1 or 2 points of each other year to date. This week, they're all within 0.3 of a point of each other. 2 of them are actually the same exact points year to date. So last week, it predicted that I think it said J.K. Dobbins first, Deontay Johnson second, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. I disagree. I said go with Deontay Johnson. But we also do a poll on Twitter, and the crowd sided with the AI.
Yeah, they
Tipp sided with the AI.
I did.
Greg was right. Greg got it right this time because Deontay Johnson outscored JK by 1.6 points, 19.8 to 18.2. Jackson Smith-Njigba got 10, so we were all right on putting him on the line.
Yeah.
This week I asked it to talk about these 3 players for week 7 in a PPR flex position: Bucky Irvin, Najee Harris, and Josh Downs. Najee's got 71.1 points for the year. Downs has 71.1, and Bucky Irvin has 70.8. Now, I thought this would be simple because Downs missed the first 2 weeks with an ankle sprain. So I personally think Josh Downs is number 1. I think Bucky Irvin is number 2. I was going back and forth on this. To me, Najee Harris is a 10-point-a-week player, except for last week when he broke off a long run for a touchdown. But other than that, he's ranged between 8 and 13 points all year. Very consistent floor, but it's a floor. It's a 10-point floor. Last week he got 22 points, but it was because of a long touchdown run where he got 12 points for that one play. So will he do that again this week or not? I don't think so, to be honest. I think the running backs that hurt this defense are the slasher, quick twitch types, and he's more of a pounder. So I'm still starting him in one of my leagues, but it's because I don't have a lot of options. So anyway, the crowd thought that Downs, they're agreeing with me that Downs should be first. They went with Harris as number 2 and Irvin as number 3. So we disagree on that one. I think Tipp probably agreed with the crowd again. Did you think? Oh no, you thought Najee should be first, right?
Najee, yeah. I think it's Najee time.
All right, so I will say that AR-15 terrifies me as a starting quarterback for Josh Downs. He just does. But after Sean Tucker's Week 6 explosion, I think I put Harris slightly ahead of Irvin, but in this case I didn't because I went back and I looked deeper, and so I'm going Downs. And I'm saying this out front so that next week when we report it, there's a record of me saying it. So basically, I'm going Downs, Irvin, Harris, and I want to know what Sir Winnington thinks.
Sir Winning.
For Week 7 in a PPR league, here's what I think. Start Najee Harris for his consistent workload and recent strong performance. Consider Josh Downs if you're feeling adventurous, and sit Bucky Irving for Week 7.
So every week we do a fun segment we call This Day in History. And that's where I take something out of history and try to turn it into football related. So we know that I'm disagreeing.
Greg, real quick, Greg, I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's go ahead and look, we got 2 really great guests that we wanted to pop in here as well and talk to them.
You want to ask what they think?
I want to ask what they think. First, we're going to talk to Dr. John. Again, guys, this is an actual scientist who has broken down the methods of fantasy football. I am actually in a league with Dr. John and Dennis, who is a meteorologist, and they are 5-1 in first place in this league. So I got to give them a shout out. But I want to hear what Dr. John has to say, and then I want to hear what our Joe, Steve, has to say as well.
Well, before we do that, let's pump up Bob Lung's Fantasy Football Expo, because we met John and Dennis at the Expo and had a great conversation there. If you can get to the Expo, get to the Expo. It's the week after the Hall of Fame game every year, and it's at the Hall of Fame. You get to go to the Hall of Fame. So, John, of those 3 players, do you need me to read them back to you, or do you got?
I'm out on Irving, Bucky.
Okay.
So it's between Downs and Najee. I'm given this year's tendency that scoring PPR per snap is running back. And I haven't checked other years. I just was working on this project. I'm going Harris.
So you're going Harris, Downs, and then Irving last.
Yes.
Steve, what do you got?
The doctor's correct. The doctor, the AI, they're both correct here. When I first read the question, when I got the show sheet and I first read the question, I initially had Downs. But once I saw Richardson was in, and once you remove Flacco from the equation, you lose all those dump offs, you lose those consistent targets that you get around the line of scrimmage. And I got to put Najee ahead, especially after the Monday night game we just saw. And I know Ray Davis is a different type of runner, but the Jets aren't the run defense that they have been in years past. So I'm going to go Najee first.
Yeah, and
And
Greg,
then
I
Irving
also
against
put
the Ravens. Irvin against the Ravens. That's not
Oh,
gonna.
look! I agree with you 100%, Steve. The Ravens are a nasty run defense.
Run
But Greg,
defense.
I went ahead and put in the comment section the actual response that Sir Whittington gave, because we gave a shortened version of it. He gave a more in-depth answer, and you guys can check that out in the comments.
Yes, we really shorten it down for brevity's sake. But anyway, our first topic is this day in history, and I'm reading from my phone. Apologize for that, but this day in history, October 17th, 1814. Vats of beer at the Moe and Company Brewery burst, flooding city streets with 610,000 liters of beer. This produced an almost 15-foot tall wave of porter, killing 8 people, some of whom were gathered for a funeral. All right? Not a happy day. Usually you see a wall of beer coming at you, you're pretty happy. Not this day. So
at least Homer Simpson is.
I want to know which NFL home team is most likely to drive their fans to drink by losing in a spectacular position. And I'm going to go first because last week this would have been a perfect question for me. As a Detroit fan, I could have said Detroit and it would have been perfect because not only did they embarrass the Cowboys on Jerry Jones' birthday, but they tried to get a touchdown to both offensive tackles and almost did. So, but this week I'm sticking with my Lions, and I'm saying the Minnesota Vikings are going to lose to Detroit at home. Detroit is just much better on defense than the Vikings, and their running game can control the clock. And I like what Sam Darnold's done, but last week he showed he's not perfect. Well, week before last, he was. I think he was on bye last week, wasn't he? But Darnold definitely in his last game had a bad game. So I'm looking for this to be their first defeat. And that's going to make a lot of Vikings fans cry, including our very own JC.
All right, great.
Next up, who's up, Tip?
No, next up, we're going to go to our Joe, and that is Steve. Talk to us, Steve.
Right.
Who is your...
Initially, I was going to go with the Giants. Right, they're going to be drinking because Saquon's coming back. They're going to look at their offenses and is a little questionable at quarterback. But I have to go with my homer pick as well. Ultimately, the Ravens here. I just think they're in another class than the Bucs. The Bucs have been playing great football. You love the Baker Mayfield story as it's a made-for-TV Disney movie, but just there's another class of team. It's going to be. It makes me think of the Jets were sky high going into week 1, and then they met a Super Bowl contender, and it just sort of put them back in their place. Jets are a good team. The Bucs are a good team, but there's another level you have to get to with these teams that have gone deep in the playoffs before, and the Ravens have. So I'm going to take the Ravens, upsetting the Buccaneers fans.
I like that call. So, Tip, is it you or Dr. Bush?
It's gonna be Dr. Bush. But before we get to Dr. Bush, I got to put my lab goggles on. Hold on, let's see. There we go. These are the closest things I have to lab goggles. So, Dr. Bush, we're ready to go.
Nice. I picked Cleveland at home to lose. They're out of liquid. Their tears are so sad. They'll have to pour beer down their face to get the tears flowing again. It's that sad, and they need something. I don't know what. It's time. I don't know. They're gonna have to chew their own leg off that trap that the quarterback has put them. Given their quarterback that much money, they're going to just chew that leg out of that trap.
I actually picked up Jameis Winston last week in the league.
Yeah, I picked up somebody.
He's worthless now because they don't have anybody to throw to.
They refuse to play him too. You're right. Yeah.
Hey,
so,
Dennis said Tillman. I'm just going to throw this out. Dennis says Tillman is the one that's going to take the place of Cooper.
Cedric Tillman.
Just what? Okay. It's a little tip. My weather friend Dennis, my partner, brother from another mother, he said, Tillman, we just talked about it at our podcast. And so I'm fishing for him for $1 in my fab.
Why not?
Why not for $1?
Why not for $1? Let me take these goggles off because I am not a scientist by any means. But I will say this. It's the Saints. The only thing that the Saints have been marching in is the L column. They have lost 4 in a row. I think they lose again tonight. You got to think of the aspect that we have Sean Payton coming back to New Orleans. You know, that's going to be something big. The New Orleans Saints are beat up. That's to be nice. They're worse than that right now, especially with Rashid Shaheed going to IR. I think the Saints get beat up. I don't think they get blown out like what Greg was saying, 14, 20 points, but I do think they lose at home.
Okay, Iggy, what's our next segment? All right. Well, again, every week there is a player that's a stud that should be sat. Now, I define studs differently than most people do. I look at actuals. I don't look at projections. I don't look at where a player was drafted. After 6 weeks, we kind of know what's going on in the season. So if you're top 12, you should be starting in most leagues. You're expected to give RB1, wide receiver 1 type numbers, quarterback 1, tight end 1. So every week, we all pick one top 12 player that we say for this week shouldn't be started. Now, what we don't do is we don't pick players that we know are not going to play. Now, last week, there was actually one of our studs did not play, but he was questionable.
Right.
He was questionable coming into our show, so that's acceptable. By the same token, I would not pick Chris Olave this week because we know he's not going to play. All right. So this week we're picking our studs to sit, and I will go last. Tip, you get to name the order.
Well, Greg, for the year, we are 12-8 and 4 calling these plays. So we actually have a winning record calling these studs to sit. And we're going to go in a little bit of a reverse order. This time we're going to start with Steve. And so, Steve, who is your start to sit?
Going Monday night, Kyler Murray. Right. So I just don't like the game script for Arizona. And I own Kyler in some leagues. He really hasn't been that great. His running has really kept him afloat. I just don't think they're just not going to have the ball as much as they'd hope. Right. San Diego, or the Chargers, not San Diego anymore. They're known for, well, they want to be the smash mouth team, play defense, ball control. They're very slow at running plays. They're lowest in time of possession, but pace of play, they're very low in pace of play. So, and with the Cardinals defense, I think Dobbins is going to have a good game. I think they're going to have the ball a lot, a big time possession. And I just don't think Kyler's going to have the opportunity to score a lot of points on Monday night.
I like that call. Kyler has what a lot of people think is the cheat code because he's a rushing quarterback, but I think that leads to injuries more than anything. And I've got to say, didn't they hold his top receiver down last week?
Yeah, Harrison's hurt. He's in concussion protocol, so they do have questionable questions at the receiver position. Even though I am a Mike Wilson guy, I do like Mike Wilson, and Trey McBride's been great.
Steve, what do you feel about Greg Dortch?
He's serviceable, right? Okay. He's a pass catcher. He's above average. He's a good player, right? He's a solid player. For fantasy, I probably wouldn't play him. Definitely not with Kyler's questions.
Okay, well, we got you mentioned J.K. Dobbins. What do you think about Kamani Vidal against your Cardinals?
They're not my Cardinals. I like Vidal too. I like them coming in the rookie draft. I'm a year-round player doing Dynasty, as I'm sure much of the listeners are. So Vidal is not a new name to us. So I like Vidal.
He gets 12 touches this week?
I would hope so. Right? He looked good last week. Right? He got limited touches last week, but did produce some numbers. I still think Dobbins gets the bulk share, obviously, but you want to keep Dobbins healthy. So I would hope that they limit it. I know Dobbins hasn't really been that explosive since early in the season, right? He came off big with the first 2 weeks, but then some of that explosiveness seems to not be there. And the matchups were tougher, right? You go against Pittsburgh, you're not going to get that.
Yes.
So I'm hoping to see some bigger gains from Dobbins this week, and maybe splashing of Vidal will help that.
Okay.
I like it.
Who's
Greg,
next?
I want to hear from you. You're Greg.
I said I'm going last. You got to choose somebody else.
Oh, all right. Well, let's go with Dr. John. Let me put my goggles on. Let's see. There we go, Dr. John. Okay.
John, I apologize for my co-host.
Yeah,
using prompts.
what a character. Come on, Tipp.
We have to.
You were
We have
so
to have fun.
serious at the expo. I thought you were a stand-up guy. Here you go.
I'm serious. That little old me.
Okay. I picked, I thought, kind of an easy pick, likely, according to Greg's list. What, the third quarterback, a tight end is still, Kohler was scoring. I think there's a fourth tight end to be revealed somewhere with the Ravens. So I drafted a little of both, Andrews and Likely. It's a little tough this week, not great. My defense against position metrics a little bit tough, and you're splitting the gumbo. And down here in Arkansas, Louisiana, where I was raised, you don't split the gumbo. Get your paws off the gumbo. So no, that's what I'd be telling Likely. If I'm Andrews, take that wooden spoon, pop that man's hands, make him the blocking tight end. Andrews catches. So I'm sitting Likely this week in the leagues that I have him. If I've got a shot at somebody else.
Steve, what do you think about John's choice?
Yeah, I think it's a good one. Like you said, you're splitting targets, right? You have two tight ends, and you have the third. Just Kolar did well a couple weeks ago.
And you still got Zay Flowers there and Bateman.
Oh, I love Bateman, right? Like I'm a big Bateman fan.
JC, wait, say that again. Say that again, so JC can hear it.
JC hates Bateman.
Say it one more time.
Say it again, please.
I'm a big Bateman fan.
Tim, it's your turn, buddy. It's your turn.
Yeah, so for me, it's Tank Dell, but I just do want to say something about what Dr. Bush just said. Dr. Bush what I liked what he said about Mark Andrews. We saw him come on last week. Last week he played against the Ravens. The Ravens do give up a lot through the air, but this week he plays against the Panthers, and the Panthers are giving up 33.
Have you lost your mind?
No.
Mark Andrews did not play against the Ravens. He plays for the Ravens.
Sorry, the Commanders. I got the DMV. I got the DMV mixed up. I'm sorry. Yes, he played for the Commanders. He played against the Commanders, and the Commanders give up a lot of points. So I was like, whatever you mean that I lose my mind? Maybe I have lost it a little bit. I've been sleeping like 2 hours every night these last few nights. But anyway, I will say this. I will say that Mark Andrews. He's a really good play this week against those Panthers, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Excuse me, another team who's given up a bunch of points through the air. So that's a really good pick on that one, Steve. I love it. All right, so let's get to my pick. My pick is Tank Dell. Again, look. So
Your stud.
My stud is going to be my stud to sit. It's going to be. I'm sorry, David Montgomery. I told you those 2 hours of sleep I've got. David Montgomery is going to be my stud.
I didn't think Tank Dell was.
No. I looked at it wrong. It's David Montgomery. David Montgomery for me, guys, is a sit this week. I'm going to tell you right now why he's a sit. And it's not because I don't like the team, the Lions. I love what the Lions are doing over there. I just love what the Minnesota Vikings are doing on defense, specifically in the run game. They're not really stopping you in the pass. I think there would be a lot of yards in that realm. But when it comes to the run, they are stopping teams. They are not allowing any touchdowns. They've allowed 0.2 touchdowns at home. And they're also only allowing 67 rushing yards per game. And guess what? They've only allowed 12 points so far this season at home. I think it's going to be a much higher scoring affair than them letting up 12 points this week, because let's just face it, the Lions are on a tear. But what I will say is that the Lions are going.
I think
Brian Flores has already said it. He's already given them Lions a bunch of credit on how they move the ball and how they use their offensive schemes. Usually, when a head or an offensive coordinator or head coach gives people a compliment, when he gives them a compliment, that usually means they're about to bust some heads. So I think that Brian Flores and this defense stops the Lions' run game, which is the heart of what the Lions do.
As usual, I think Tipp's an idiot. I'm sorry. 8 straight games over 2 years, Montgomery's gotten in the end zone for Detroit. He is not going to be out of the top 24.
See that? That's what I do, buddy. 0.
He finishes between 13 and 24, and that's at worst. I think both Lions running backs will get over 67 yards this week, but that's just me.
Nope.
Steve, John, what do you guys think?
That's what they're going to stop the run.
Steve, go ahead.
Oh, Montgomery was someone that jumped out to me when I was looking for a player on the list to sit, and mainly because of the Vikings defense has been good against the run, but I didn't dig much into it. I think that's going to be a great game, so I don't have too much to say about that.
John, you have anything?
Yeah, the defense against position, the Green Bay's tough, so he's going to have.
Yeah, but he's playing Minnesota this week.
Take his lunch, Mr. Montgomery, and a big lunch, because he's going to be working for those points. But 24th, he's going to cruise in there in that 21st to 24. Yeah. I would be amazed if he was, beyond that as a 2 this week.
Well, I just don't accept anybody choosing a Lion to sit. I just don't accept that. That's not fair.
I'm going to take up a little bit for JC, Greg.
Well, that's good, because I'm going to break JC's heart with my team this week. I actually went with the tight end, and the last time I went with the tight end, I screwed up and took Brock Bowers, and he ended up being the top tight end that week. But this week, I'm going with somebody that was drafted in the top 4 tight ends, Dalton Kincaid. He's getting consistent targets, but, he has 5 or more targets in each of the past 4 weeks, which is pretty good for a tight end. But the problem is that they've got a new receiver in town who's going to draw some targets. And Josh Allen is still spreading the ball around. But, last week, Kincaid got 7 targets. Samuel and Coleman got 4 each. Davis got 3. Hollins, Shakir, and there were 2 unknown targets. I don't know who got them. They weren't completions. So, and whoever got them didn't catch them. So that's why I don't know who. And then Knox got 1. Just happened to be a touchdown, but he did get 1. This week, that they're going to give Amari Cooper 8 to 12 targets. He's just that kind of receiver, and they want to work him in fast. But I'm considering the biggest problem for Kincaid is this week's opponents. They're playing the Titans. People don't realize this. Titans have allowed 14 for 120 and no touchdowns to tight ends all year. 14 receptions, 120 yards, and 0 touchdowns. That's 3 for 24 on average. Now, give me another option. Now, full disclosure, I rarely carry a backup tight end, so I will be starting Dalton Kincaid in 1 league this week. I'm just not expecting 10 points from him. And if he doesn't score 10, he's not going to be in the top 12. Any thoughts, guys? Am I nuts?
You're always nuts, Greg. But no, I think you're right on that one. Dalton Kincaid hasn't done it all year either, so I think you're right on there.
I think Knox actually was vulturing, and he's not going away if you look at the snaps.
Nope.
So, and they are tough against tight ends, extra tough. In my metrics.
Dr. Bush, I'm happy you said that, because that's one of the things I like Dalton Kincaid coming into the season, but I just thought that if Knox was healthy enough, because he was a little banged up in preseason. If he stays on the field, he's a red zone threat.
And he's getting snaps.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
he's not going away.
Steve, what do you think?
I like Kincaid coming into the season without the alpha wide receiver on the roster. I thought Kincaid was going to get a lot of those targets. I'm not sure that Amari gets 8 to 10 targets right out the gate in his first week. I'm sure they will have a package of targets for him. Just don't know if they're going to be on the same page early on. Hit me 2, 3, 4 weeks down the line. Yeah, Amari's going to be getting double-digit targets, and I'm sure he'll get something this week. But I don't, like you said, the Titans are good against the tight ends, and now they're splitting it between 2 tight ends. So yeah, that should be easy.
And it's not like the Titans haven't played anybody. They went against Cole Kmet, who's having a pretty good year.
And Kincaid hasn't had a great year either, right?
No,
I have Kincaid on a couple teams with thinking he's the alpha there for Josh Allen, and he hasn't been putting up the numbers that I expected when I drafted him. He's been fine. He's fine because all the tight ends are fine.
Right. All right. Well, we're going to break right now because we got to pay the bills. Take us to
Find your win tuition and elevate your sports betting with Better Takes. Better Takes examines your betting history to uncover hidden areas that cause bankroll leaks. Uncover patterns and biases so you can break the cycle of mistakes, avoid weaknesses, and play into your strengths. Our advanced stats offer unparalleled granularity, helping you immediately spot problem areas that could be affecting your success. Use the Better Takes Edge score to gauge your expertise for each potential bet, providing clarity and confidence in your decisions. Take control of your betting journey. Download Better Takes from the Apple App Store or Google Play today and start understanding your biases for free. Before placing bets, check with Better Takes, a smarter, more informed approach to sports betting.
Hey, I got to say, I watched last night's Game Changers with Carla, and she interviewed the gentleman who founded Better Takes. Who would think that a betting guru would come up with his idea from being a stamp collector? You've got to watch that video. It's great. It really was. So, Iggy, what's the section we're doing? Hey, we went to Put Me in Coach. We've had that name, but we went to that because people get so upset when I called Amon-Ra St. Brown a sleeper in week 2.
And I called CeeDee Lamb a sleeper in week 2.
He was the 83rd ranked wide receiver after week 1.
Yep.
That makes him a sleeper for that week. So I'm sorry. We go by actuals. And in week 2, yes, there's going to be some guys that had a bad week 1 that probably shouldn't be called sleepers, but still you want to know whether to start or not. So this week, we're going to tell you players that are outside the top 12 quarterbacks, tight ends, or top 24 running backs and wide receivers to start. And some of them, you're going to be surprised. They're pretty deep. You know, some players just screaming out, put me in coach. Tip, you decide the order.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to go with this one, and right now we're 10-14 on the year on this one. And I was so excited to talk about Tank Dell that I jumped the gun, and now I get the chance to talk about it, and I'm not as excited anymore. But no, I'm just kidding. But look, Tank Dell, for whatever reason this season, he has found himself in kind of a lull. You know, he hasn't had the games that we thought he would have in the future. Or during the season. So what I did was I went out and I talked to some fans of the Texans. I talked to some of them on Spaces. I talked to them at local bars. I just said, tell me a little bit about this Bobby Slowick offense. And a lot of them are upset about it. A lot of them are talking about it's not aggressive enough. They're not throwing the ball downfield other than to Nico Collins. They need to utilize Tank Dell, not only in space, but throwing the ball down the field. And I agree with it. When I go back and look at this offense, it is very stagnant from that standpoint when it comes to Tank Dell. He's averaging 9.7 yards per catch this year. Last year, he was at 15.1. So that in of itself tells me that they're trying to keep him close to the line of scrimmage for whatever reason. Utilizing him in space is great, but you can get this guy down the field as well. We saw him do it last year. But this week, they play against the Green Bay Packers. And I will tell you, the Green Bay Packers are a good defense. They're solid. But they do give up touchdowns. They give up 1.7 passing touchdowns to opponents coming in there. That's almost 2 touchdowns. With a guy like C.J. Stroud at the helms, that could be 2 touchdowns because of how good C.J. Stroud is. And they're giving up the 7th most to passing yards.
They crown their ass.
Yeah, exactly, crown their ass, like Denny Green just said. So the thing is with this is they give the 7 most passing touchdowns. But here's the kicker. This is why I really, really, really like Tank Dell. When the Texans are away from NRG Stadium, they are averaging 3 touchdowns given to that opponent. So the Texans are not stopping defenses whenever they are the passing offenses, and they're giving up 3 touchdowns. So I feel like this is a situation where the Texans could find themselves in a bit of a shootout. We would actually Dennis come in here and talk about the weather, because I know it's always a little funky in Green Bay. But as of right now, I'm going to say that it's clear skies and 68 degrees in Green Bay. So what I would say is Nico Collins is also out. Tank Dell is the play for me this week. I think Tank Dell gets in the end zone yet again for the 2nd week in a row.
I like the fact that Mixon's back, gives them a running threat and makes the play action much more viable. John, what do you think?
I agree. I like I think the Houston they're very, I'm charting some other metrics on them. They're very dynamic compared to a lot of teams out there with the running, the pass. If they could just work in the tight end, get Schultz going or somebody, that would really confuse the defenses. And that's in the balance, that's where they're lacking. That tight end wheel is a little bit unbalanced.
Steve?
I agree with Tank Dell, right? He finally got great air yards. Right? He had 71 air yards last week, which is the first time he broke 49 air yards since week 1. So week 1, he had 105 air yards. So he's getting targeted down the field a little more. So last week, he finally achieved that again. And I think it's going to be a higher scoring game. Houston has a good defense, but I saw that their 2 linebackers missed practice today, Toa and Aziz Al-Shakir. I think they both missed practice today. So that leads to, hey, we're going to get a little bit more running game from the Packers side. So at least balanced offenses, and a nice shootout would be great for my Jaden Reed shares.
Go Josh Jacobs. Who's next, Tipp?
Next is going to be you, Greg.
Okay, well, I went with the quarterback. I went with the red rifle. Andy Dalton's facing the Washington Commanders. And let's face it, the DC squad has given up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. They're just not very good on defense. They're allowing opposing quarterbacks to complete almost 70% of their passes, and that's pretty bad at the NFL level. And they only have 1 interception all year. That's the amazing thing. That means Dalton, who has been plagued by interceptions, doesn't have to worry about it. He'll throw to tight windows, and I think with his receivers in Carolina, they're gonna let it go. He's been averaging 36 passes a game in 4 starts, and he's got multiple TDs in 3 of the 4 games. I think that happens again. I'm projecting 25 of 36 with 2 touchdowns and no picks, 250 yards. Now, he doesn't run a lot, but he will get about 10 yards rushing probably. So that would be 25.5 points in fantasy, which would have been top 5 every week except 1. In week 3, it would have been 6. So I'm liking Andy Dalton to make the top 12 at quarterback this week.
I like that call, Greg. I do. Who do we have next, Greg?
Well, why don't we go to our Joe first? Steve, what do you got?
Sure. Pivoted back to, you mentioned Amari Cooper in the last segment and the recently traded players. So Devontae Adams, I think if you have him, you're probably going to put him in your lineup as well. Some of these other guys that were sort of the that are rostered that you want to play that are in better situations now because of the trade. So you probably want to get them in. But I went for someone who is probably on your waiver wire or was picked up this week that we can get in. And I want to have some synergy with the person I'm saying to bench. So I said bench Kyler Murray. He's a quarterback. So I love the Drake May. In his first start last week, we saw what he did. He had 3 passing touchdowns. He gave some life to a Patriots offense. And I know he came up yesterday, they mentioned he was going for an MRI. So assuming he's healthy, he is playing in London on Sunday morning against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we just saw Caleb Williams light up the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're also a defense that only has 1 interception on the year. They let quarterbacks pass for 2+ touchdowns on them. I think it's 2.33 touchdowns a game against them. And Drake May has the running ability. I know that could be seen as a detriment, as they might get hurt. But for this game, let's see it as a positive. Let's get some rushing yards. Let's throw the ball around. Pop Douglas is someone who's out there that maybe you could pick up as well if you're looking to add a wide receiver. That's
Hunter Henry too. Yeah.
I actually like the way May runs with the ball. I basically break quarterbacks who run down into 2 categories: running quarterbacks and quarterbacks who can run. I've always considered Josh Allen a quarterback who can run. I've always considered Lamar Jackson a running quarterback. The difference is before last year, Lamar kind of made a switch, but before last year, when Lamar decided to run, he was running. He wasn't looking downfield. He wasn't extending plays. He was running. Okay. Josh Allen has always extended plays. That's what I saw from Drake May, is that he had his head downfield while he was running, trying to look for receivers or run receivers open. So I like that, actually. I like your call.
I do too.
Thank you.
John's, you're next, buddy.
Okay. I picked Juju Schuster, Kansas City. Dennis told me to do this. He's a big Kansas City fan.
I put him in my starting lineup because of your pick. Just so you know.
Okay. So having him just coming on, then the break, then come back, then Hilaire's coming back, got Hunt. There's a lot of moving pieces. And I don't think the San Francisco D really knows how to deal with it. I think Worthy can stretch it, and I think Juju can collect you some catches. So to me, I'm thinking a good flex play. I don't know, 20 points. If I get 13 out of Juju, I'd be so happy. But I believe the upside, because Kansas City actually in away games about 10% more passing attempts kind of on average in some of my metrics. So they like to pass a little more anyway, and their defense is befuddling everybody. And I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on San Francisco, their D, and they're not going to know who to guard. And so I think he's going to slip through the cracks and get you a few catches and maybe fall into the end zone for an extra treat that you'll need for your flex plays this week.
Folks, don't let the accent fool you. The befuddle, this man is a professor. He is a true professor. No, I love that call. And I didn't put him in as a wide receiver 1. I put him in as a flex play. And I'm thinking 13 to 15 points is perfect.
Yeah, the median is about 13 when I do some metrics. So 13 points PPR full. That's sweet for a second flex. I play 2 wide receivers and then 2 flexes, and
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're about to go to our final segment, but before we do, I want to ask Tipp something. Tipp, can you please do the last question first? Because I actually asked Sir Winnington what he thought about this question, and I want to post it into the chat so that people have a chance to read it, because it's very long-winded. But when we come back and do our mailbag, please do the last question first, because Tipp runs the mailbag, by the way, guys. So, Iggy, can you take us to the next segment?
I gotta tell you, man, that every time I hear that I don't know, is that a saxophone? Whatever that is, it just gets to me. It's hilarious. But yeah, this is our mailbag section. We love doing this. We love answering questions for you guys. We love helping as best we can with the knowledge that we gain over the course of the week. I gather these questions for you guys, for Greg to answer, for our pro and our Joe to also answer. And we're going to answer this collectively. This one is going to be from G. It is a little long-winded, like Greg said. So bear with me, okay? G has a trade offer, and he says, "Hey, fellas, it's a redraftable."
No, wrong question.
Wrong question.
Yes.
Are you talking about
Dobbins?
the
Dobbins or Hubbard? Dobbins or Hubbard?
Okay, well that's not very long-winded.
No,
that's what.
No, the Sir Winnington was long-winded.
Oh, Sir Winnington was long. Okay, the response. Okay,
so I wanted to get it into the chat so people could read it.
Hey, we'll work on the fly. That's fine. Let's do it. So let's see what Dobbins and Hubbard what Sir Winnington has to say with them.
Okay, well, it's in the chat. I'm not going to read it, but basically, I asked for the pros and cons of Chuba Hubbard or J.K. Dobbins, and we've done the answer, but we want to get John, Steve's tips and my opinion on this. I just wanted to be able to get Sir Winnington out in the chat where if you're watching this live, you gain value because you get the AI opinion of this. So why don't we go with you first, Tip? Who do you like of these two?
Yeah, I think they're both good plays this week. I'm going to go slightly Hubbard just because they are playing against the Commanders. This might be the last week we get to see Hubbard, or maybe, it's coming towards the end because Jonathan Brooks is scheduled to come back. He's hit that 21-day window. So I think that we keep riding the Hubbard train. He's catching the passes. I agree with what Greg said about Andy Dalton earlier, the Red Rifle. I think that he gets it going as well. Possibly gets one of those touchdowns to Hubbard. Dobbins is good. I like Dobbins a lot. I know we always talk about the injury situation, but we cannot ignore the fact that Cavani Vidal is there. And Cavani Vidal showed last week. He flashed big time, looking a little bit like Austin Eckler out there with that number 30. So I'm going with Hubbard this week.
Okay, and I'm going with J.K. Dobbins. Until he's hurt, I think he's the play here. I do like Hubbard, and I really don't worry about Brooks this year because it takes 18 months to come back from a major knee injury like he had, and it's not 18 months. He got hurt in December of last year. So I don't think he'll do anything of value this year. Give me J.K. Dobbins. John, we'll go to you first.
I like Hubbard slightly over. It's closer than I would. I wouldn't want to make this decision. So if he's asking me, I'm going Hubbard, but I would not bet on the prop between those two. If that was the bet, I would decline to bet that.
Steve, you going to agree with me or Tip and John?
No, I'm going to go Dobbins. I agree. It's very close. If you told me it was a full PPR league, then I would say, okay, let's go Hubbard. But without that qualifier, I'm going to go with Dobbins and figure he's probably good for an end zone touchdown run.
So basically, we were no help to that.
Absolutely none.
Because we did 2 and 2. So Tip, now you can take back over. Sorry about that.
All good. All right. So collectively, this is a question for all of us to answer. Should we have an answer for it? G has a trade offer. He says, "Hey fellas, redraft full point PPR." So that's good that he gives us that information. Thank you, G. He says, "I have CeeDee Lamb." He got offered CeeDee Lamb. He got offered CeeDee Lamb for Lamar Jackson. He currently has Caleb Williams on his bench. He said, "Should I trade for Lamar in this situation?" Here's his wide receivers, though. His wide receivers currently are Brandon Ayuk, Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley, Jordan Addison, and the new Bills wide receiver, Amari Cooper. Greg, what do you think on this one?
Okay, so I like to take these and break them down to their components. All right. So the first thing I did was I put down points per game for each of the players. So Basically, CeeDee Lamb is averaging 15.4, Lamar Jackson 23.9, Caleb is 15.9, Ayuk 9.7, Chris Godwin 20.7, Calvin Ridley 7.6, Jordan Addison 12.0, and Cooper 10.2. Now, we all expect Cooper to go up, whether substantially or a little. We expect him to do better with the new situation. So while CD would add between 3.4 to 5.7 points per game to your wide receiver room, depending on how many wide receivers you start, I basically looked at 2 to 5. So with his room, you would add at most 6 points a game, and at worst 3.5 points a game. The quarterback move would drop 8 points per game from Lamar to Caleb. Plus, you give up the injury insurance that you have with having Caleb, because he didn't say he was going to give him a quarterback, and who knows what's available on the waiver wire. I wouldn't do this trade, not at all. Next.
What about you, Steve?
I'm in the same boat. I did the same thing Greg did when I sat down as I looked at Lamar Jackson versus Caleb for year-to-date points, for average points per week, and saw the differential there, and then did CeeDee Lamb versus the other players and versus potentially replaceable players on the wire as well. Yeah, I would keep Lamar. He's having an elite season, right? He's having a season that's going to win you leagues. And now it's not as good as 2019 when he was throwing the ball around as well as running. But who says that doesn't happen, right? At some point, maybe a defense loads up on Derrick Henry, and now he has to throw some. Yeah, I'm keeping Lamar. I don't think his wide receivers are that bad, especially if he says I only have to start 2. Now, if you only have to start 2, it's even better. Right. You have some depth there. And as Greg pointed out, Amari's numbers are going to come up. I think Ayuk's going to have a better second half than first half. He missed all the preseason and the offseason with his holdout. So his wide receivers aren't that bad. Keep the elite quarterback.
Bush? Dr. Bush, what do you think?
Yeah, there's no question you want to keep Lamar, just for lots of metrics that I won't go into. But yeah, there's no way. No way.
You know, I was actually against keeping Lamar in this situation, but when Amari Cooper went to go play or got traded to the Bills, that changed my mind a little bit. Because you would love to have CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Jordan Addison, Brandon Ayuk, Chris Godwin, like that. Those wide receivers, that is a league-winning wide receiver. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like you guys said, Lamar Jackson is playing at a different level right now, and as long as he has number 22 running behind him, Derrick Henry, King Henry, whatever you want to call him, this is going to continue to play on like the way it is. And I know you like hearing that, Steve, as a Ravens fan. I like seeing it, man, because the first 2 weeks of the season, I didn't know what we were going to expect, because the offensive line looked like it was in shambles. Mm-hmm. The defense wasn't playing the way it's, though, at least on the run side. And then there's another situation. You might be getting into a bunch of shootouts, and if you're getting into a shootout, it's good to have a shootout in the situation with CeeDee Lamb, but why not have a shootout with the person who controls the ball in Lamar Jackson as much as he does? Because that defense on the passing side, as far as giving up plays and giving up passing yardage, they give up a ton. So yes. I think Lamar Jackson is the play here, just to keep him. I would shop Caleb and see maybe his team has such good wide receivers. His running backs are struggling a little bit. Greg talked about it earlier, not going with the 0 RB strategy, or how that would drive him nuts. And if that's the case, then maybe he has weak running backs, and maybe trade Caleb Williams off of a good game after his bye and get yourself some running backs there.
Excellent idea.
So at number 2, is going to go to Greg, and this is from Ice Mick Baby. I don't
Ice
make
Mike.
These names up.
Ice Mike, like a microphone.
Well,
Mike.
Okay, Ice Mike, Baby. He said he wants to know Marvin Harrison Jr. or Amari Cooper. He also has Blake Corum and Isaac Arindo. Who are you playing who are your long-term picks for both positions for the season? 12-team league. He did not say if it was a PPR or not.
Okay, and he said long term, but he said for the season. So I'm thinking rest of the season and not down the road. So basically, I went in and again I looked at what each player's done. I absolutely hate the term generational talent. And when a player gets that applied to them, I tend to discount them. I also absolutely love Michigan players. So I am prejudiced on both sides of this question. So I'm just letting you know that up front. MHJ has averaged 11.5 points per game this year. His low is 0, his high is 29. He's had one wide receiver 1 game, one wide receiver 2 game, one wide receiver 3 game, and 3 trash games. Cooper's averaged 10.2 with trash quarterbacks. He's gone from 3.6 to 27.8, one wide receiver 1 game, and 5 trash games. I think we all accept that his numbers are going to improve, and so is his outlook. I like Cooper personally, but we don't know how he'll mesh in Buffalo, nor if he'll remain in Buffalo or even play beyond this season. So if this is dynasty, it's a little different. I want MHJ. But for this year, Cooper's contract expires at the end of this year, and he'll be 31 before next year. So redraft, definitely I want Cooper. Dynasty, I'll probably take Junior. Okay? As for the running back, Corum will always be a favorite of mine. I think he was the best running back in this draft, bar none. That includes the kid that's playing on that Brooks. I think Corum's a better back than him, to be honest. He returns kicks. He's had 4 for 115 yards, but he's not getting much offensive play. I mean, I'm going to be fair about that. 13 carries, 53 yards, 1 catch, 8 yards. If Williams goes down, give me Corum, because he's in my mind, a top 12 back. Garindo is also not getting a lot of work. He also returns kicks, 2 for 55, but he's getting more use on offense right now. Okay, but that's because of injuries to other players. They come back, he goes back to the bench. So, his offensive work has been good. 22 carries, 140 yards. He hasn't scored. Personally, I like Corum more, both short term and long term. But you should be aware, I'm a Michigan fan, so it definitely colors my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong on that, on the running back, one at all. So we're going to go to I think we have time for one more, maybe 2, but one more. Dr. John, this is going to be for you. Okay. Aaron wants to know, he has to choose between Darnold or Fields this week. And then I'm going to just add an extra caveat. Let's say if Russell Wilson starts. Which one are you playing out of those 2 or Darnold?
I'm playing Darnold. Minnesota, their efficiency is just off the chart compared to Pittsburgh. So I'm just a better team, and they're more dynamic. Jefferson, Addison, it got to go. I would. I didn't even draft any of with Fields. I drafted Darnold as a nice 2, and he's potentially turned into a low 1 for me on the quarterbacks, which was surprising. I was drafting, even my dog agrees.
I agree with you, but I have got to put in the caveat. They're playing Detroit. Detroit gets pressure on the quarterback, and Darnold did not look good under pressure last week.
Without Hutch? Inexcusable. You don't have Hutch this week.
Yeah,
we've got time for Steve. Let's get Steve's question in.
All right, so let's get Steve's question. This is from Fantasy Dad, who's a really cool guy. I know him. He would like to trade Mike Evans for Jonathan Taylor. Would you do that?
I think I keep Mike Evans, and that's mainly because Jonathan Taylor's hurt, and he's not even practicing. Right? If you have a high ankle sprain, that knocks you out for months. So even if he comes back, he's going to have reduced output on his production. So, yeah, I'm keeping Mike Evans just because of that, just because we don't know Jonathan Taylor and his status.
Okay.
I want to say I agree with you, Steve, except if it's dynasty. Then I definitely want Taylor over Evans.
Of course.
And if it's standard scoring, no point per reception, I still think Taylor. Give me Taylor.
Yes.
Real quick, Dr. John, if you could tell us where we can find you. You hear the music. That means we're about to close up shop.
Okay.
Tell us where
it's under my name, scienceoffantasyfootball.com.
All right. And Steve, what about you? Where can we find you as well?
Don't bother looking for me. You can't find me anywhere. I'm on Twitter X, but I don't post much, so there's no need. I appreciate everything.
Absolutely,
well, we appreciate
man.
you guys coming on. Thank you very much. And next week, who do we have, Tip?
Next
If
week,
you don't have it,
I have to look at it. You got it?
I've got it. I just got to bring it up. Go to the bottom. Next week, we have Dylan Schmittler as our pro and Greg Miller as our judge.
Go Saints.
Everyone. That goes.
They're going to get shelled, John. They're going to get
Yeah,
shelled.
they're going to get smacked.
Thanks, guys. See you all next week. If Iggy